Today we have a story of intrigue, crime, and a pursuit that captivated an entire region. Get cozy, grab a drink, and let's dive into this chapter from Appalachia's past that rivals any Wild West story. I'm Steve Gilley along with Rod Mullins, and this is another one of the stories of Appalachia.
Wait a minute. Did you say to grab something, get cozy, and enjoy yourself? This sounds like it's going to be something that's kind of tense more than anything else.
Well, maybe we should go redo that intro. What do you think?
No, I think it's okay. I think what you were saying is okay. I think people really ought to just wrap themselves up into this and sit down and listen to it, because this is a really good story about, one of the biggest, well, I wouldn't say the biggest, but it was big for the time, of that famous robbery, so to speak. And I'm not going to say anything else because I'm going to lead you into it.
Well, you could call it the Great Train Robbery, although technically a train was not involved, but technically maybe kind of it was. But we'll kind of get into that as we go along today.
Okay.
Now, our story transports us to the morning of Friday, August 14th, 1914, a seemingly ordinary day in Mingo County, West Virginia. A Norfolk and Western train arrives at the Glen Alum station, as it does every payday, carrying the $7,000 cash payroll for the Glen Alum Coal Company. Little did anyone know that this arrival would set off a chain of events that would lead to one of the most significant and bloodiest crime stories in West Virginia's history.
Boy, I tell you, when you say Mingo County, that perks my ears up. Well, the payroll money was entrusted to three men: Dr. W.D. Amick, the company physician; F.D. Johnson, the bookkeeper; and Joseph Sheeler, the company electrician responsible for operating a gasoline-powered Norfolk and Western handcar from the Glen Alum station up Glen Alum Creek to the coal company's offices and the men waiting for their paychecks. The three set off on, down the tracks, and everything seemed normal for the first few miles of the journey. As they got farther along, though, they spotted something up ahead that looked either like railroad ties or logs that were laying across the tracks. There was no going any farther until they cleared the way in front of them.
And when they stopped to clear the tracks, a hidden gang of bandits ambushed them and unleashed a hail of bullets on the unsuspecting men. In an instant, the lives of Dr. Amick, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Sheeler were tragically cut short. The gunman quickly seized the payroll money and vanished, leaving a trail of shock and sorrow in their wake. When the men didn't arrive at the mine office on schedule, company officials became concerned enough to call the train station to see what was causing the delay. Not long after, a report came in from someone delivering supplies who had come across the handcar and the three men, two dead and one dying. The dying man, the only remaining witness, told what had happened to them. Well, the news of this brutal triple murder and payroll robbery reached Mingo Sheriff Greenway Hatfield, the nephew of Devil Anse himself. Sheriff Hatfield wasted no time in assembling a heavily armed posse, determined to bring the outlaws to justice. What followed was an extensive and relentless manhunt that shook the region to its core.
Okay, question here before I go on any further and tell some of this story. We mentioned Sheriff Greenway Hatfield, who was a nephew of Devil Anse Hatfield. I don't know. I maybe my mind is a little bit faltering right now, but Sid Hatfield, was he of any relation to Devil Anse Hatfield, or am I imagining this?
No, you're not imagining things. Sid was, I think, and don't hold me to this, folks, because I'm doing this on the spot, but I think he was descended from Devil Anse's father or grandfather. But anyway, they're related. He's part of the Hatfield clan.
Well, of course, when you go to Mingo County, West Virginia, back in those days, Hatfields were all over the place. That's what it seemed like. But, the initial posse comprised of 25 to 50 men, Steve. But as word spread, the community rallied together. Mines and sawmills across the region, they shut down. and the miners and sawmill workers putting aside their tools to join the pursuit for the robbers. Well, it swelled the ranks up of the manhunt to staggering numbers. This united effort displayed the unwavering resolve of the Appalachian spirit. For 2 days, the posse tracked the robbers through the rough West Virginia country. On Sunday morning, Sanford Hatfield, a resident of the area around Cold Spring Fork, probably related to Devil Anse Hatfield, but that's another story, along with his friends Ed Mounts, Mitch Patrick, Alex Patrick, and George May, were walking alongside the fork when shots rang out. Apparently, they had come a little too close to the hidden fugitives who fired upon them. Hatfield and Mounts were wounded. The posse was alerted, and soon it managed to corner the outlaws, who were hopelessly lost and holed up in a rugged ravine, named Shanty Hollow, of all things. A fierce and deadly gunfight erupted with over 1,000 shots exchanged between the lawmen and the fugitives. Kind of reminds me of Star Wars, and the stormtroopers could never hit the broadside of a barn, so 1,000 shots rang out. I don't know. But anyway, the standoff raged on for hours, and at one point, the posse set off dynamite in an effort to dislodge the outlaws from their defenses. But those trapped robbers were determined to survive.
All right, I got to go back to something you mentioned just a minute ago. You talked about Sanford Hatfield and his buddies out walking down the creek.
Yes.
One of those guys was named Mounts. Do you reckon he's any kin to Cotton Top Mounts?
Could be.
I looked that up, but I couldn't find out for sure whether or not that was the truth. And, of course, Cotton Top Mounts was the only person in the entire Hatfield and McCoy feud that got hanged after he got tried for his part in this feud. So it's quite possible that, yeah, Mr. Mounts is kin to the Mounts family that includes Cotton Top.
Well, if it happened in Mingo County, you know it's got to be associated some way or the other.
All righty. Well, let's get back to this story, okay? The climax of this whole manhunt arrived on Sunday morning, August 16th. The posse launched a final assault on the outlaws' hideout. What they discovered was a scene of profound loss. 4 of the outlaws lay lifeless, riddled with bullets, while the 5th was barely clinging to life. He would die soon as well. Nobody recognized any of the men, although they appeared to be recent immigrants to the coal fields. In fact, some of the men said they looked like swarthy Italians, I think is the word that I read. A detective agency was employed to identify the bandits so that coal company officials could deal with any future incidents. But the investigation turned up no leads whatsoever. And these 5 strangers, Rod, remain shrouded in mystery to this day. Now, the bodies were transported to Williamson, where they were displayed in coffins and eventually laid to rest in unmarked graves. Speculation ran rampant, with unfounded rumors suggesting that these fallen men might have been members of the secretive Black Hand, supposedly an Italian society known for preying on their fellow countrymen. Ironically, if the 5 had stuck to the railroad or the roads, they may have made it out of the area. Instead, heading into the rugged mountains of West Virginia, an area they obviously didn't know very well, was, well, not the best move they could make.
But let's not forget, $20 was missing from the recovered blood-stained payroll. It remains a curious mystery, an elusive piece of the story that adds another layer of intrigue to this already captivating tale.
Now, I don't know if they lost the $20 or if they spent some of that money somewhere. Nobody really knows. Nobody's ever found a $20 bill or 2 $10 bills or anything like that anywhere up in there that dates from that time. So unless the payroll was shorted by $20, I would say that they've lost it somewhere so far back in those mountains that nobody would ever find it.
Yep, I'd say so. You're right.
And folks, that's the story of the 1914 Glen Alum train robbery. Another one of the stories of Appalachia, this place we call home. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the Stories Podcast. Doesn't cost a thing, and you'll find us on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Audible, Good Pods, or on your favorite podcast app, whatever that might be. We're also on YouTube at Stories of Appalachia, where you can also catch our podcast episodes, on TikTok at Stories of Appalachia, and Instagram at Story Appalachia. We share short videos on Appalachian history and folklore on all three platforms. Be sure to follow us there. Till next we meet, y'all take care. So long, everybody.